In Total War Pharaoh, just like in any other Total War, we have settlements, but in our game we introduce a new feature called outposts. We have 7 different types of outposts which the player can construct. They vary from military outposts to economic outposts and are designed to help the player in different situations. For example, one of the most interesting outpost that we have is the fort. Once constructed on the map, the player can move in with their armies there and protect a certain territory. Another interesting example of an outpost is the monument. It is very much connected with the ability of the player to claim the pharaoh crown. In order to be able to become a pharaoh, the player needs to gain enough legitimacy. Monuments are one of the ways the player can do that. They need to construct them across the land, promote their brand, and by that they can further down the line claim the crown. Another interesting outpost will allow the player to be immune for some time from the perils of the desert. In Egypt there is a lot of sand and sometimes traveling across the desert is important. So such outposts will help the player not to lose the majority of their army while traveling. Another outpost will help the player with the upkeep of the army. Yet another outpost will help the player with the production of their regions. As we planned the game, we wanted to make sure that a successful playthrough will include a combination of outposts and buildings in the settlement in order for the player to succeed.
For Total War Pharaoh, we're bringing match combat animations back. They will be played by individual entities from each unit. The animations are weapon specific, so when an entity attacks another entity, the defending entity will not just play a random defend animation, it will play a specific animation depending on the weapon attacking it. So there's quite a large number of animations going to be played, which will immensely help with immersing the player to the actual battle and the gruesome details of it.
For Total War Pharaoh, we are reworking sieges by adding multiple victory points. What that means is essentially that every single victory point in the city matters. You do not gain points as it was before by capturing a single victory point. You have to capture multiple to start winning. If you're on the attacking side and you manage to capture one of the victory points, that means that you will get debuffs that are specific for this victory point. The more you capture of the settlement, let's say you capture a second victory point, then the defender starts losing morale because they're losing their city. And if you capture all 3 of the victory points, you have essentially captured the whole city, meaning that the defenders' morale starts plummeting because they have lost their home. Another thing that we're adding for the sieges is bringing back siege ladders as being equipment instead of having them in your pocket. What that means is that you have to construct them prior to a battle, as with other siege equipment. Another siege equipment that we're adding is wall sapping, which basically means with enough time to prepare, you can destroy one of the walls before starting the battle. Another thing that we're adding is settlement destruction, which means that you can burn down a settlement. The more you burn down a settlement, the more penalties the defender takes. But do be careful how much you burn down the settlement, because if you manage to win and colonize the settlement, the repair bill is way higher.
Total War Pharaoh starts with some of the leaders already in place. For the Hittites, this is Suppiluliuma II, who you can play as, and for the Egyptians, this is of course Merneptah. For all other factions, you will first have to demonstrate your worthiness. This is done by accumulating first enough legitimacy, and then by challenging the pharaoh or the great king himself in a bloody civil war where all factions will have to choose between defending the supreme leader in place or becoming a pretender themselves and try to grab the throne. Legitimacy is the key resource that will allow you to start and win a civil war. It is a sort of representation of how the people measure the worthiness of a leader in that time. And it is also what historians would call symbols of power and order. There are different sources of legitimacy, and each one will allow you to win the civil war using different strategies. These are, for example, conquering lands of significant importance for your people, to capturing places of interests, such as the Sphinx or the pyramids, to building monuments for your people, and even wearing certain crowns. In the case of the more military-oriented Hittites, you can also accumulate legitimacy by engaging in battles. The tougher the odds of the battles, and the bigger the enemy vanquished, and the more legitimacy you will earn. And this is the main way you earn legitimacy for Hittites. However, there's a downside. If you lose these battles, most probably the victor of that battle will be able to challenge you in a new civil war in an attempt to become the new great king.
In Total War Pharaoh, characters progress through your campaign by leveling up, and as they level up, you can choose to increase one of their competences. Each character has 3 competences. These are Presence, Fortitude, and Ardor, and all of these reflect a different aspect of what it is to be a Bronze Age general or a politician. Presence. It shows how capable you are of inspiring the men around you as they fight. The second one is Fortitude. It represents how well you can withstand harm, both in battle or outside of battle. And finally, you have Ardor. This shows how quickly you can react and how quickly you can make decisions, again, both in the battlefield and outside of it. As you level these up, you gain gameplay effects. Presence increases the offensive capabilities of your armies, Fortitude increases the defensive capabilities of your armies, and Ardor increases the speed of movement, both in battle or in campaign. Competences have another very important aspect because they are prerequisite for titles. And titles are these special names that you can assign to your character. For example, if you want to assign the title Master of Charioteers to one of your characters, you will need to have a certain amount of ardor in order for this character to take the title for themselves. You can assign the titles to an unlimited amount of characters. Each faction has a bespoke variety of titles that they can use. Competences are also dependent on the character background. It's a special trait for your character that comes along with the character as you recruit them, and it affects both the initial distribution of competence points for your character and also the kind of traits that the character has access to. If a character is, let's say, bloodthirsty warrior, then this is their background, they will likely gain the trait cruel and not that likely to gain the trait merciful. In addition to that, the ancillaries have been a core part of many Total War titles. They will be easily recognized by any of the veteran players, but we're doing something new in Total War Pharaoh. We are adding an equipment type of ancillary. These are your weapons, your armor, shields, and mounts. In most cases, this is the Bronze Age, so the mount is a chariot. But as you equip different types of these ancillaries, you will get a different unit as a bodyguard unit for your character. If you begin with having a sword in your inventory, if you equip the sword, you will get a unit of swordsman. If you switch that sword with a spear, you will get a unit of spearmen. Of course, putting a bow over there will grant you access to ranged units. You can put them on a chariot and have a swiftly riding archer unit as your general. Also, it allows you to adapt to any situation that might arise in your campaign.